Alright guys, so why do I have the bumper off? Well, something I noticed the other day. See how the fins on the condenser are kind of pushed in a little bit? It's just from over the years, rocks and sticks and larger bugs getting smacked in there and bending those fins over. And that's obviously reducing your airflow across the condenser slightly. You can see this side's a little bit worse. Basically, if the condenser is not getting airflow or enough airflow, that means the radiator and the intercooler aren't getting any airflow, which of course those are behind the condenser. So what we're looking at isn't that bad for a 2011 car. Honestly, that's not anything I would be too necessarily worried about. It's an awful lot of work to pull the bumper off or the bumper cover off just to do those. So that's not why. This is why. So like I said, if the condenser is not getting any airflow, neither is the intercooler or the radiator. Obviously you have your bumper bar in the middle. You're getting some airflow. You do have puller fans on the inside of the cooling package, obviously. Those are pullers. Obviously they're pulling air through the cooling package. Just one of those things I kind of took a glance at and made the decision I need to do whatever I can to the best of my ability to try to straighten these out. Now, is that why the car was missing in the top of third? No, I believe that's resolved with a fresh tank of fuel. Like I said, I really haven't readdressed that issue at the moment. I've just been driving the car moderately. I've only done a couple full throttle pulls, one and out second, and it hasn't hiccuped yet. Alright guys, I've been messing with this on and off after work. Kind of a lost cause here. I mean, I tried to straighten these out best I could without a comb. I should have just bought a comb, but the thing is, these fins are so they're just falling apart. They're folded in. Like the sections, you know, like the sections that are folded in, I mean, they just fall apart. There's nothing to, you can sit in here and with a pick and try to reshape everything. And I've got a small feeler gauge, a 10,000 feeler gauge I cut down to fit in between these slats. But like I said, I've used a comb before, and you have mixed results depending on how much life the material has left in it. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. Sometimes a comb isn't going to do anything. Like these spots right here, all you're going to be doing is pushing these further in, and you can see everything is falling apart. You know, this is more than a 10-year-old car. You're going to have all these little tiny rocks and bugs and pebbles all over the place. You know, so I mean, this thing needs a condenser. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the situation I'm in at the moment is the AC before I started messing with the condenser actually works better on this car than it does my truck, even in the high 90s. And it's just starting to hit 100 here in Texas. So like I said, I've got no complaints on the AC as is, but again, you can just see there's really no help in certain sections. That's why a lot of these sections I just rooted out. So that's the upper right side. You see there wasn't much to do there. The left side wasn't much to do there. More of the same. I mean, you could mess with this for hours and most of these sections will just start falling apart. Which is why when I got to the bottom, pretty much did what I could do to help alleviate the restriction. The reason it's kind of honeycombed like that, that's just for extra support to keep the cores somewhat stable against each other. Like I said, I know this does not look great, but it's a lot more effective and efficient than it was, believe it or not. First, why was the condition of the condenser a bad thing? So those fins in between the cores act as a heat sink. They draw heat away from the cores, and then the airflow draws the heat away from the fins. Very simple. It's a heat sink design. It's a air-cooled heat exchanger. When those fins are smashed in and there's not any airflow, they actually retain heat in between the cores. So feel free to look on YouTube on how AC systems work and the role a condenser plays. That's a whole long explanation. But if you're interested, I would just do some independent research and you'll understand more or less why I did what I did. Why didn't I just replace the condenser? So I do have access to an AC machine. So that would have meant I have to put the bumper back on, take the car to the shop, discharge the AC, bring it back here, pull the bumper off, pull the condenser, pull the entire cooling package off the car. Basically the whole core support, radiator, intercooler, condenser, all the lines associated with it, all the fans, the airbag modules, all this crap, everything's got to come off the front of the car. It looks like it's easy to replace the condenser, but it's not. You've got to remove the entire front core support and cooling package and dismantle the whole thing. Again, if it needs done, it needs done, right? So do all that, then reverse all that, put it all back together, then drive it to the shop, charge the AC back up just to find out that there's something wrong with the new condenser. I would say about 1 in 5 condensers has something wrong with it, even brand new OEM genuine stuff. And I've dealt with that before, even working in a dealership environment. It doesn't seem to matter what brand you buy, it's a toss-up. And like I said, about 1 in 5 condensers, whether it be damage during shipping, damage during manufacturing, sometimes you catch it before you install it, sometimes you find out after you install it there's something wrong with it. So then that leaves you in a situation of, well, where am I going to buy the condenser from? I would likely buy one from a local parts store just because it's easier to exchange just in case something is wrong with it. But again, that's an awful lot of work for replacing a component we don't absolutely need. The AC, like I said, is working phenomenal right now, even after this. So there's no reason to replace it. Will it benefit it with a brand new one? Of course it will, but that's an awful lot of work for an awful lot of potential headache. Condensers are fairly fragile. They're very susceptible to damage and getting bumped around before final installation. So it's not so much me cheaping out or being lazy. It's just, in my experience, it just didn't absolutely need it. I was able to do what I did, and the AC, like I said, is working just fine. I've got no complaints with it, even in 100-degree weather now. So to reiterate, guys, the primary reason I did what I did was to reintroduce airflow to the cooling package. Like I said, I didn't root out the entire bottom half of the condenser. I only removed the sections that were too far gone. So believe me, in our specific situation, what we did was beneficial. $40. Well, the good thing is it's a little nicked and scratched, just like the bumper. Perfect. Alright guys, I just doubled up on the zip ties. Like I said, it's not tight. I don't want anything to wear out and break. Everything's just kind of snug. See, on this side you can push it out just a little bit, and then it pretty much just cinches back in. So, good enough. Alright guys, so today we're going to do a super simple job of replacing the fluid in the front transfer case, or bevel box as they call it. I really can't get a good view of the fill plug. There it is. Drain and refill to the plug until it's running out. Takes just under a liter on the front and just under a liter on the back. Alright guys, here we are at the rear diff. That is the drain plug for the Haldex unit. That is the fill plug for the Haldex unit. I'm not going to mess with this yet, if ever. I don't see any markings where it had ever been serviced. I may do that at some point down the road. But today we're just going to focus on the rear diff and the front transfer case, or the bevel box as they call it. So here's the drain plug for the rear diff, and then there's the fill plug for the rear diff. So you're probably going to want to use 1/4-inch drive for the top portion. You want to do the top side, you want to undo the top side first anyway, just in case you run into any crazy issues, if it's been over tightened or the threads are pulled. You don't want to drain all the fluid and then not be able to put the fluid back in, and then not be able to get the fill plug back out. So there we go. There we go. Didn't feel very good at first. She's good. A little dark, but it's not bad at all, guys. I'm curious to how much darker the rear is than the front. I don't think the rear has ever been, oh dang it, I don't think the rear's ever been changed. So there's our mark, and just a snug past that mark. Well, no, actually we're right back on the mark. You can see my little pump set up. This is very old. It still works. It's a Harbor Freight deal. I've used this thing for so many little projects. Differentials, transmissions, you name it. There's been a lot of fluid pumped through this, and it's not exactly the right size. Hate that. Never get all of it out. There we go. Oh god, I suck. And that's that, guys. So my car conveniently is missing the skid plate, and I believe there's a heat shield. I think there might be a heat shield that's supposed to be in this area. Mine is conveniently MIA. Again, not my doing, just what we're dealing with. So again, I don't know how long it takes to remove one of these skid plates because mine's missing in the first place. So say 15-20 minutes for that, and then about 20 minutes for this job, if that. I mean, you probably knock it out in 15 if you're in a hurry. They recommend you replace the rear diff and the front transfer case fluid every time you service the transmission, which I guess that's just good habit. Gonna make a mark. Now remember, we're doing the differential, the ring and pinion. We're not doing the Haldex unit. A very different thing. It's a hydraulic coupling with viscous discs in there and everything. This is just mechanical. This is the ring and pinion rear diff. Dang it. And that fluid looks brand new. Oh my god, I love wasting money. You just don't know until you know. So put our fuel plug back in. Alright, right back on our mark. Plus I went just a little past. All right. Now when I pull this out, it's gonna leak. Gonna be dribbling a bunch out. I'm just gonna let it hit the floor. So I'm gonna fill up the rest of the old bottle in this one because I like to see some fluid running out, and I really didn't get any. It's probably right there though. Try to get another squirt or so in there. There we go. That's what I want to see. All right guys, it's a billion degrees outside. So the fluid I used, I wanted to use the genuine stuff. I was gonna go ahead and pay the brick and mortar cost, and I actually went to my local Volkswagen dealer assuming they'd have it in stock. They didn't have the part numbers that my car called for. I know that doesn't mean a whole lot, but they did have GL5 compliant, 7590 full synthetic. It does have the friction modifiers in it for LSD. I'm pretty sure this car does not have an LSD front or rear, but it doesn't hurt to put that fluid in an open diff at all. Again, that stuff wasn't cheap either. Wins is a pretty reputable brand. I had never actually heard of it, but I did a little bit of research. I guess it's bigger in the Jeep community. I guess it is an American brand. But I mean, hey, a Volkswagen dealer was using it and putting it in their own cars, whether they be Volkswagen or Audi. So I figure I can't go wrong there. It's certainly not going to hurt anything. And at least now we know that the fluid is changed. I know I could have just ordered what I wanted online and waited, but this was kind of a last minute decision. I just wanted to do one extra little thing to the car. And I did kind of forget about that too. I hadn't thought about that till recently. I was like, you know what? I never really even checked the differentials, but you really can't check the differential. Pretty much once you're draining them, you might as well just refill them. So another thing done.